What if the secret to building a trillion-dollar empire wasn't about avoiding failure, but actually running straight towards it? Today, we're going to dig into the super counterintuitive philosophy that Jeff Bezos used to build Amazon, one bold and, yeah, often failed bet at a time. I mean, listen to that. That's a direct quote from Bezos himself. Let it sink in for a second. Billions, with a B. That statement just flies in the face of everything we're taught about success, which is exactly why we need to understand what he means. So that's the big question, right? The paradox we're going to unpack today. How on earth does losing billions of dollars somehow lead to creating a trillion-dollar company? It sounds crazy, but let's break down the unconventional math that actually makes it work. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with that paradox, then we'll get into the math behind these bold bets. After that, we'll look at the actual wins and losses, explore the hidden danger of playing it safe, and then wrap up with a practical framework you can literally use for your own big decisions. All right, let's get right into it, the math of these bold bets. And to really get this, you kind of have to unlearn everything you've ever been taught about the fear of failure. So on one hand, you've got conventional wisdom. Play it safe, don't mess up, avoid failure no matter what. That's what most of us are taught. But then there's the Bezos philosophy. It's all about experimentation and accepting that failure isn't just possible, it's a necessary part of the journey. He believes that if you're not failing, you're just not being ambitious enough. And this right here, this is the magic ingredient that makes it all work. It's called asymmetric returns. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. One single home run can be so massive that it pays for all the strikeouts you had along the way, and then some. The upside is just so much bigger than the downside. And this is the crucial mindset shift you have to make. Stop thinking of big projects as having a guaranteed outcome. Start seeing them as experiments. Because what do we know about experiments? They often don't work, and that's okay. In fact, if none of your experiments are failing, you're probably not pushing the boundaries hard enough. So that's the theory. Sounds pretty good, right? But does it actually hold up in the real world? Let's look at the scoreboard, the actual wins and losses, and see if the proof is in the pudding. Man, this slide really tells the whole story. On one side, you have these gigantic, world-changing wins like Amazon Web Services and Prime. On the other side, a graveyard of famous failures. The Fire Phone, anyone? But here's the thing. The value created by AWS alone is so astronomical, it could pay for 1,000 Fire Phones. That is asymmetric returns in action. But let's be real for a second. Just because you embrace failure doesn't mean it feels good. Bezos himself said it's like a root canal without anesthesia. Ouch. It is painful. The whole point of his philosophy is knowing it's going to hurt, but having the guts to go through with it anyway for that big long-term breakthrough. Okay, so we've seen the power of taking these risks. But what about the other side of the coin? What's the real danger of just playing it safe? What's the biggest risk of all? Well, according to Bezos, the biggest danger isn't failing, it's stagnating. It's getting too comfortable. Companies that are too scared to try new things, to experiment, they're basically on a slow, painful march toward irrelevance. And when a company gets to that point, when they're backed into a corner, they're often forced to make what he calls a Hail Mary bet. You know what I'm talking about. That one last desperate heave when you're about to lose the game because you didn't make the smaller, smarter plays earlier on. And I want to be crystal clear about this. A Hail Mary bet is not a bold bet. It's desperation. The entire point of making those smaller, strategic experiments along the way is to make sure you never, ever have to bet the whole farm on one last roll of the dice. So how do you make these bold bets without just being reckless? Well, it turns out Bezos has a really clear framework for this, a toolkit for making these high-stakes decisions. The first principle is super simple, but also brilliant. You have to be stubborn on your long-term vision, like absolutely unwavering. But you have to be super flexible on the details of how you get there. You've got to be willing to experiment, to pivot, to adapt as you learn what's working and what's not. This whole idea is captured perfectly by the motto of his space company, BlueOrigin. It's Latin, and it means step by step, ferociously. I love that. It's this perfect combination of patience, taking it one step at a time, and aggression, attacking each of those steps with everything you've got. Long-term vision, short-term ferocity. Okay, the second part of his toolkit is maybe even more powerful. And it's something all of us can use when we face those huge, scary, life-altering decisions. It's called the regret minimization framework.
It's a really simple thought experiment. Step 1, picture yourself as an 80-year-old. Step 2, from that perspective, look back on the decision you're facing right now. And step 3, just ask yourself one question. Which path will I regret the least? Not which one is easier or safer, but which inaction is going to haunt me.
And look, this isn't just some abstract business theory. This is real. This is the exact mental model that gave birth to Amazon in the first place. Think about it. It's 1994. A young Jeff Bezos has a cushy, high-paying job on Wall Street. Life is good. But he's got this crazy idea about selling books on this new thing called the internet. So he used this exact framework, and it gave him the clarity to make the terrifying choice to walk away from it all and start Amazon in a garage. He knew he might regret trying and failing, sure, but what he knew for certain was that he would be haunted for the rest of his life by the decision not to try at all. The regret of not doing it was a far, far greater risk than the possibility of failing. And so that brings us to the final question, the one for you to think about. When you're 80 years old, looking back on your life, what are you going to regret more? The thing you tried and failed at, or the thing you were just too afraid to even try?